A lot of what was learned about leadership over my high school career had yet to gain meaning until this year. That's because most of the leadership that the center teaches us isn't immediately applicable or observable. That's because underclassmen aren't in the workforce, where leadership is most present. I guess what I'm trying to say is that leadership isn't most relevant until you get out into the workplace. There are some minor exceptions, such as more involved clubs and sports, which can give you a taste of leadership. But for the most part, leadership isn't relevant until you observe leadership being practically applied. And from what I've seen, leadership can be applied by almost anyone. I work your average retail job. My managers aren't the brightest people out there, but they are able to manage a fairly large staff and make a substantial profit. I would call that leadership. I know that that isn't what people tend to think of as leadership. Many people think of leadership outside the context of practical applications. This is the nebulous, irrelevant leadership theory that is referred to in many a sappy quote, comparing leadership to a spring day or a flock of geese, and is supposedly developed through leadership building activity. But that doesn't actually have anything to do with leadership. Real leadership is a manager helping an employee to solve a problem. Real leadership is a boss providing a good example to his or her employees by finishing his or her work ahead of schedule. Even though I don't believe in a lot of what people call leadership, there are some basic traits that are vital in real, substantive leadership environments. I do believe that a leader does need to have knowledge, confidence, respectability, and social skill. In this case, knowledge is a fairly obvious and general thing. A leader needs to know more about the work environment than the people under him or her do. If you were to work in, say, a clothing store, you would expect that your manager know more about the store and the clothing business than you would. If your manager didn't, then you would wonder why you weren't manager. If a leader lacks confidence, then the people around them will not respect their decisions. A leader often doesn't come into power without confidence. However, it can often be improved by having superior knowledge. What I mean by respectability varies from job to job, but overall it is the sense that your leadership is good at what he and the group are doing. For example, if you were an employee at a computer graphics firm, you would expect that your boss, in addition to being a competent administrator and manager, would be a good graphic designer. They wouldn't have to be a great graphic designer, but they would have to have some basic level of skill. When I say that a leader needs social skill, what I mean is that the leader needs to be able to communicate effectively. This doesn't mean having the charisma of Barack Obama or Winston Churchill, but a leader has to be able to communicate effectively. This means being able to communicate your expectations and demands to your employees without using too many space fillers. After this short laundry list of basic traits, style can help you get your point across. I personally believe that an interactive, more personable approach can get you a bit farther, but a more transactional approach can work just as well. I've had managers who utilize both types of leadership, and I didn't like the transactional one as much, but I felt like both got the job done. Leadership isn't about adaptability, likability, or any overarching thing that helps a leader lead all the little followers out there. In fact, my vision of leadership isn't really just for leaders, because the traits a leader must have are the same that make an effective employee. My vision of leadership applies to all travelers on the road of life. It's just as much for servant leaders, followers, and for people in general.